I remember once I had grown up, traveling back to my mother's area near Buffalo, New York. And I was intending to go visit my cousin, who lived in an area further away from her hometown of Lackawanna. And as a child, I remember all the family talking about how he had moved so far away. They said, oh, he'd moved out to this area called East Aurora. It's so far. And I remember people making such a big deal about the distance that he had moved. And in my mind, it seemed that it was quite a significant distance. Well, as I was older and on my way to visit him, I was at the border between Canada and Buffalo, New York, and I called him to let him know we were almost there. And I said, well, it looks like it'll probably be at least an hour before we get to you. And he said, no, it's only going to be about 15 minutes. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? 15 minutes? And it was then that I realized how limited the lifestyle and the attitude was of the people from that town. For them, going anywhere beyond 15 minutes of a drive was way far away, was too far. And I couldn't believe the notion of restricting yourself to such a limited area, such a small neighborhood, and that was their comfort zone. And for me, as someone who had grown up as a daughter of a foreign service officer, grown up overseas in many different countries, my world was so expansive. And it just struck me so deeply how people really limit themselves. And when I meet people in different communities as I travel as a speaker, I realize many people within our Muslim community too limit themselves in so many ways. They put themselves in boxes and they close that lid and they feel comfortable in that little zone and they're very afraid to open that box and look outside. And I'm not talking about lifting the box and letting go of every limit and boundary of halal and haram that we have as Muslims. No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. But the conception of the self, the vision of what your world is, and being comfortable in multiple places with people who are diverse, who have different ways of thinking, different ways of speaking, different ways of acting, and learning how to be yourself within those various environments. I see that we're so limited in our Muslim communities. Each ethnic group likes to keep themselves in these confined limitations about how they should look, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, how girls should be, how boys should be. And they really restrict themselves in such unhealthy ways, and they find such discomfort when they're met face to face with somebody who's different. And I find that so limiting and such a tragedy, because Islam is about inclusivity. It's about a diverse population coming together under one definition. And in a way, for me, as someone who's come from a different background to Islam, I haven't grown up in this structure and in this environment, I've had such freedom to delve into what it means to be Muslim, to try to embody the principles, the beliefs, the ideals. It's that which motivates me. Those ideals motivate me to try to be my best. And I'm not so concerned about whether I look like a certain group, or whether I fit in a different society, or if I speak in the manner of a particular community or ethnic group. And so I'm free from all of that. And I really wish people could embrace that and understand that the message of Islam is for everyone. And it looks different in different places. And stop defining Islam by what you think it is in terms of your comfort zones and your parameters, because it's not that. You've attached yourself to something that is beyond what is right for us as Muslims. You've attached yourself to something that's other than the principles and the beliefs. You've attached yourself to things that are safe and things that are comfortable. So stop being zebras in the swaying grass who are hiding behind those walls of comfort and protection. Those are all falsehoods. Come out and embrace your religion and learn how to be with different people. Learn how to be with someone who isn't the same as you, who doesn't speak the way you do, but yet they still share the same values and principles and Islamic ethics and guidelines. That's what our religion is about. My mom was such a motivator for me growing up. She always encouraged me in terms of my education, in terms of my potential. She really didn't like when I slacked off or did anything less than the best. And she said, Nicole, you have more potential than that. So she would always push me, and she would always help me think about what I could achieve. And she never put any limits or limitations on me in terms of what I could achieve academically or professionally or personally. And she was all about providing opportunities for me to grow and to learn and to be involved with life. And one of the things she did that was really amazing is she signed me up for a program with Tony Robbins. And it's called Unleash the Power Within. And it sounded like a fantastic seminar. And she really built it up for me, telling me all about how he was an amazing speaker, how he motivated people, that it would really help you go to the next level. And she had done a course with him herself, and she had been so inspired to overcome her own challenges, her own shortcomings, to really know herself more deeply and to move forward in life. And again, you know, as a mom, you know, she's at a different age range, right? And so looking at her taking these steps to discover herself, to enjoy life at a new level was really inspirational. So I was very excited to go on this trip with her, and we got packed up and we were on our way to the city of Philadelphia. And we arrived at the program, and it was a huge crowd. You know, this is a crowd of at least 1,000 people or more. And there was so much buzz in the air. People were very excited about the program, Unleash the Power Within. And Tony Robbins is just an amazing presenter. And he comes on the stage, and just his whole presence is so dynamic, magnetic, and potent that you're really drawn into the message he has for you about really learning to release all those limitations inside, all those fears you have about making steps forward in your own life. We make so many excuses in our lives about what we can do or what we're capable of, and in fact, we're capable of so much more if we allowed ourselves to open up those potentials. And that was the message he gave. So I was all on board with this. Here I am, a young 20-year-old, and I'm just jazzed up by the experience. And then all of a sudden, I hear a buzz around me. People are like, "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. Are you going to do it?" "I don't know if I can. It's going to be tonight, you remember?" And they're talking about something, and I have no idea what they're referring to. And I'm listening, and my mom was somewhere else at the time, and I'm kind of tuning in on these conversations. They're like, "Are you going to walk on the fire?" And I thought to myself, walk on the fire? What on earth are these people talking about? And I came to my attention that this program was not just Unleash the Power Within, but it was a firewalk experience. And the firewalk being a metaphor for overcoming major fear and doing something that you didn't think was humanly possible. And I was shocked. She hadn't told me. My mom had not told me that this was part of the program. She had brought me along and thought, you know, we'll see how Nicole does. Well, Nicole was in shock. I said to myself, "Are you kidding me? There's a firewalk?" And at first I was thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to do something like that. How on earth are you going to walk over hot coals? So Tony Robbins has a whole lead up to prepare everyone to get ready for the firewalk. And it's about getting motivated. It's about pumping yourself up. It's about, you know, enlivening the courage inside of you, releasing restrictions, believing in yourself, and setting all these, you know, mental markers ready to get you able to do this. So we get outside. You come outside, and there's all of these 6-foot long coal beds with these glowing coals, and there were several of these, and so we all got into different lines, and I'm thinking to myself, is this really going to happen? So I watched one person go, you know, and he had prepared us mentally to overcome the idea that this was even hot, right? He says to yourself, say, "These are cool." So you say something opposite of what the reality is there, and you say, "Cool moss, cool moss, cool moss." And this is the way you're mentally preparing yourself to overcome something physical. And so we all prepared ourselves with this chant and so on, and we're all about go, go, go. And then when you get to the end, you have to wipe your feet so there's no coals sticking on it, and they rinse you off, and then you have a moment of celebration. So you anchor in your body the incredible experience of having overcome this. So I'm watching everybody go through those steps and go through those, you know, moments. So they're giving themselves the motivation, they're walking, they're celebrating at the end, and I'm just fascinated. Then it came my turn, and I stood in front of the coals, and I was like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Well, who did I have in line with me, motivating me? Because each line had a mentor, somebody there to prepare the people to go. It was actually Tony Robbins' wife, Becky, at the time. And she turns to me, and she looks at me, and she says, "I'm not going to let you go until I know you're ready to go." So I'm like, okay, fine, great. So she pulls me aside. She gives me a little pep talk. She looks me in the eye, and she says, "I see you're ready to go." She puts me back in the line, and I go. and I walked across those hot coals. I wiped my feet and I celebrated at the end, and I couldn't believe that I had done something so amazing, so unreal, such a boundary breaker. And then from that point on, what was the gift my mom had given me? She had given me the gift of seeing that potential is so unlimited, that what's within us is much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And I believe this is truly the message of Imam Hussein. He went against every threat, every intimidation, every horror, but he did it with ultimate courage because he exemplified what was truly possible in the human spirit. He exemplified the capacity to overcome all the restrictions and limitations of the mind and of the reality, and to still stand forth with such dignity, with such uprightness, with such fearlessness and courage. And these two experiences are so linked. And I'm so grateful to my mother to awaken this possibility within me, and that inshallah I can be an inspiration to others to do the same, and that we can look at our noble figures within our Islamic history, Imam Hussein and his noble companions, his family, the women who accompanied him in his journey, and see the amazing courage and dignity and fearlessness that they represented. They're really a model and inspiration for us. Sometimes growing up, you don't realize what you're learning until much later in life. And one of those lessons I learned from my parents was exactly that. My mom and dad were never social climbers. They were never the type of people to position themselves with people who had influence just for their own benefit. They were never hobnobbers or socialites who had to be seen at a particular place. And that's interesting because they were in the Foreign Service, and there were many people who do engage in that type of behavior and try to make connections for their own professional benefit, for their own personal benefit. But I never saw that in my parents. My parents were of a different mindset. They were the type of Americans who believed in hard work getting you places. They were people who engaged in real effort as a means to grow and as a means to progress and as a means to accomplish something professionally and personally. Both my mother and father didn't go to college or university and receive bachelor's degrees. They all got various training experiences, but university life was not something that they had the opportunity for. But yet they both did incredibly well and developed so many skills. And both of them ended up working for the Foreign Service and being posted overseas in different embassies around the world. Bonn, Germany, London, England, Paris, France, Manila, Philippines, and so on. And these experiences were very rich for me growing up, but I never once was taught to make sure I made the right friends or to make sure I didn't associate with certain people who were looked down upon. They had an open-heartedness and sincerity that was very unique when they approached others. And that was an incredible lesson for me, because it wasn't really until later in life that I realized a lot of people engage in that type of behavior. A lot of people are really concerned about who they're seen with or how to impress significant people. And that's just never anything that even crossed my radar. Instead, I grew up with their attitude of hard work, positivity, and setting goals to achieve for your own benefit and for the service that you're achieving and doing in your professional life or even in your personal life. So it was all about doing my own best for the benefit of myself and for whoever I'm serving. It was never about achieving something so that it could be shown off to others. Now, my mom and dad were always very proud of me, and they did encourage me a lot, so they often would talk about whatever I achieved, but they never talked about what they achieved and who they knew and where they had reached in life. This was never on their lips. So they demonstrated a lot of humility and a lot of sincerity, and I really appreciate that. My 5th grade year in school is one that is so memorable for me. It stands out because it was a time where I really was becoming aware of myself. I was no longer a young child. I was coming into that period where self-awareness was budding, growing. And I had an amazing teacher at that time. I'm really blessed that I had many great teachers throughout my life, but in this particular year, I had someone who was unique. She was a young woman who was very confident. She was a young woman who used the new title, Ms., before her name. This was a brand new way of addressing ladies at that time, and it was very unique. It wasn't Miss or Mrs., but Ms., meaning you don't know whether this lady is married or unmarried, and it was the equivalent of Mr., which no one knows whether Mr. is married or unmarried, but it gave women a new title in the world, and that was something that she took on. And she embodied confidence and liveliness and engagement in so many ways and impressed me deeply. And I really benefited from being in her class. I can remember so much about that time because it was such a rich learning experience. I wasn't pressured to achieve scores or status necessarily through my academic work, but I was really engaged to learn, really engaged to apply everything that we had been studying to make something worthwhile. At that time, my vocabulary improved tremendously. My writing skills improved tremendously. My interest in studying improved dramatically. And it just enlivened me to learning in a whole new level. And part of it was because my teacher was so interested in us. She really saw us uniquely. She really saw us positively. But one day, she actually got impatient with one of the students. And he was a minority, Hispanic-speaking or Spanish-speaking minority. And I felt that he had gotten picked on very unfairly. And I was really distressed about it. And I felt bad because he did have some trouble speaking English, and it made my heart hurt that he gotten singled out. So here I am, a young 10-year-old girl, and I stood up in my classroom, and I spoke out to my teacher, telling her that I didn't think what she had said was fair. And instead of getting yelled at, I got praised. And I think that was such a pivotal moment in my life. I had taken these fearful steps to standing up in front of my entire class, in front of my teacher, who I respected so much, to stand up and speak out over an injustice that I had observed. And she encouraged me. She supported me. And I think she was impressed that I had the guts to stand up. And that was such a memorable moment. It was really pivotal in my life that I was able to stand up and speak out, and that I was supported in doing so. And at the end of the year, she wrote in my school yearbook, "Nicole, you should be a lawyer because you know how to speak up and you know how to stand for justice, and I'm so proud of you." And I still have that yearbook, and I still know my teacher, and we are in contact. And I tell her from time to time how much she gave me from that experience, and she writes back and tells me, "I'm so glad I gave you what you needed, Nicole." It was really such a powerful moment at a pivotal time in a young person's life. As much as we want to respond to global injustices, we have smaller issues that we deal with on a daily basis. There's things that we see wrong right in front of our eyes every day. For example, we might see somebody mistreat somebody on the street, and you just pass by it as if it's not important to you, but in fact it is. Or we see a child being spoken to harshly by someone, and we just walk by it instead of trying to help resolve it or stop it in some way. But I'm not like that, and I think that's because my teacher, Ms. Kaufman, taught me to speak out for justice. So once when I was traveling in Paris, I saw a man yelling at a woman out on the street at night, and I was walking with my family, my husband and 3 young children, and they were all young at that time, 9 and under. And because of what my family had taught me, my father, my mother, my teacher had taught me, I went straight to that man instead of walking away. I went straight to him. My husband was anxious and he was trying to pull me away. For some reason, I didn't want to go away. I wanted to go straight to him and try to help resolve this situation. So I went straight to him and started engaging him. Now, they were Muslims in Paris. And I started speaking to him in French, and I started reminding him that he's Muslim. And he says to me, "What do you care? Who are you?" I said, "I care because I'm Muslim." And I kept speaking to him to calm him down, to get him to focus, to get him to be the adult. And he started opening up to me. He started telling me what was going on. He started telling me the problem that was happening between he and his wife and why he was so upset. And in many ways, he was right to be upset, but he was going up, notching up his anger and violence and aggression in a way that wasn't right. And I stood there to make sure that he calmed down. And I stood there and made sure that she got away so that she could find some safety for herself, because he was about to strike her when we arrived. But I kept him engaged, and I kept talking to him, and I kept reminding him that he's Muslim and that I'm Muslim and that we have to be the better people. And he said, "But I'm upset." I said, "I know you're upset, but somebody has to be the grown-up. Somebody has to be responsible. Somebody has to be mature." And I kept him there. And then eventually another gentleman came and he dialogued with us and observed what was happening. And we got the situation to cool down. And we helped, hopefully, that situation from turning into a disaster or turning into a more violent situation. You know, everybody has to assess what's around them and what they want to engage in. But I want to say that be involved. Be courageous like Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Take that initiative. Make sure there's no injustice right in your immediate life. Make sure there's no injustice in the home. Make sure there's no injustice in the school environment you're in. Take that action and stand up and speak out for truth, even if it means being uncomfortable, even if it means putting yourself on the line. That's the mission. That's the goal, because there's something greater beyond our own comfort, which we have to be striving for. That's the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.